Hello and welcome everyone to our webinar, User-Friendly by Design, Why AI Built Products Still Need Real Users. First of all, thanks for joining us all today. It's a pretty interesting topic. I really look forward to this one today, as AI is just evolving so much in the last years, especially like lately, and building digital products has become like so easy and so incredibly fast, like ever before, to say it like this. And that's why it's even more important that real people actually want to use your products and can use your products, because as we're like still designing for humans, designing for real people, at least the most of us, I guess. With me today is Stefan Rössler, our product maestro and co-founder of Userbrain. So thank you very much, Stefan, for making this webinar possible today and share some great insights. And I'm Paula Süßmeier, product marketing specialist at Userbrain. And for the ones who don't know, Userbrain is specialized in unmoderated user testing. Of course, we do have like AI features and we do love AI and leverage them, of course. But our focus is always the real user, the real person. So yeah, we keep them always like at the center. So I don't want to reveal too much right now. It would be so cool if all of you could just write in the chat where you're located. I already see Allison started typing, or she already wrote something. Okay, so Allison from Vancouver, Andrea from Hungary, Germany, Wilma, Germany again, from Belgium, from Vancouver, in Vienna. Okay, also in Vancouver, Canada. Wow, that's so cool. Also from the UK are people here. From Munich, that's actually my hometown. Nice. More people from Vienna, from India. Okay, so it's so cool to see that you're joining us from all over the world. Okay. So today, first of all, we want to talk a bit about AI and like the real humans together and why AI can't make decisions for you and how things have changed and evolved. And then we're of course talking about how to make things user friendly, which is super important. We will also show you a practical workflow to make sure real people really want to use your product. And of course, in the end, we will have a Q&A. Talking about the Q&A, you have right next to the chat tab, you have the questions tab. So if you have any questions during the webinar, just feel free to write them in the question tab and we will answer all of them in the end. In case you don't see the question tab, you have the three little dots down there. It's called apps. And when you click on there, you can also see the question tab. And before we start, we would be like super interested in if you already have like experience with user testing. So I prepared a little poll and I will publish it now. Just give me 1 second. Okay, perfect. So it would be really cool if you could just quickly switch to the pause tab. It's next to the question tab. Or if not, in between the three dots of the apps. I would be like really cool if you could answer this poll pretty quickly. And yeah, so cool. Enough from me for now. And I would say let's get started. And I give over to Stefan.
Awesome. Thank you, Paula. And hi to everyone. It's great to have you all here in the webinar and hopefully have a nice interactive Q&A also afterwards. So I will show you some ideas that we're thinking about quite a lot here at Userbrain and also how we're implementing them and have been implementing them for a very long time. And to kick us off, I wanted to make a big claim and actually didn't just want to claim something. I'd like to underpin it with some data. So I'll show you the following, which is that this claim that developers are 55.8% faster with AI. And you can see there, it was an experiment done by Microsoft Research, GitHub, and MIT Sloan. And actually, it was done in May to June 2022. So that's a while ago. It's actually 6 months before ChatGPT was even launched. So before I continue, I'll just give you a little bit of background information. What they did there was they recruited 95 professionals from Upwork, the platform. And then they randomly split them into two groups. One group with 45 people and the other group with 50 people. The smaller group, the treated group, they were allowed to use GitHub Copilot. And I don't know how aware you are of it. I'm not a developer, so I wouldn't be able to explain it perfectly well. But it's basically it's an AI assistant that will help you code. So one group got this assistant and a 1-minute intro for how to actually use it. And then both groups got assigned the same task, which was to set up an HTTP server in JavaScript. And the completion of the task was actually measured by a GitHub Classroom test suite. So there were some software tests in the background that could actually say, did the people pass the test, and it got the exact time there. And then from all the people who actually completed it, those with the Copilot AI assistant did it in 71 minutes, while the other people, the other group of people who didn't have the Copilot, needed 160 minutes. So based on this, there's this big claim that AI makes you 55.8% faster. For everyone who's into statistics, and I'm at least into it enough to, I would always like to, give you a little bit of background about the data that I'm sharing with you, you can say that this is statistically significant, and the actual true speed up is probably somewhere between 20 and 90%. So that's to get us started. And during my research, I actually found there's many real world examples, experiments, and also controlled experiments who could confirm these kind of speed increases. But on top of that, there's actually this thing that's probably what we all think about when we hear the term AI built products. So not just being assisted as a developer by AI, but actually having AI building products. There are these vibe coding tools like Lovable, Replit, and Cursor that actually enable individuals to build and ship products over a weekend that used to take whole teams weeks or even months. Even in our own office here, we have Matthias, who is very into, he's a very technically minded person, really good with technology. And he was using tools like this. And literally, that's basically how I got inspired to even talk about this topic. In the term of a weekend, he could produce a completely new product. And he did so after a few weekends and got a few different products out there. And even, whole new product ideas for Userbrain and so on and so forth. And that was for me just almost like a bit of a wake-up call, as in like incredible how fast AI will make product development. Where does user testing fit in there? Where does user research fit in there? How do we as the UX community actually fit in there? What does it mean to us? And how can we continue on with this? So what's a way of looking at it? So I'm really just providing my own perspective on this based on everything that we're experiencing here. I'd be more than curious to hear what you're thinking about all of this and where you agree, where you disagree, and just have a conversation, hopefully. The next thing I want to show you is this. And for those who don't know, it's the Wenger 16999 giant Swiss Army knife. It packs 87 implements and 141 functions into one tool. And it's absurdly impractical, as you probably can see from the image. It weighs roughly 3 pounds, and it's just huge. And if you're looking at this, you can see that it's, you wouldn't want to use a tool like this. And I like to use this image as a metaphor for what complex software looks like from the user's point of view. Because on paper, this Swiss Army knife wins every feature comparison. But in real life, nobody wants to use it. And with AI accelerating how fast we can ship features, I expect we'll see more and more giant Swiss Army knives products everywhere. And they'll just, appear everywhere we look. And I think there's a real responsibility when it comes to, how can I even say it, but a reduction of what we're doing. Because building is now become cheap and plentiful, even more so than in the past. But in the past, you still needed a big team to pull something off. Now you just need an internet connection and a paid plan for one of these vibe coding tools. Although I have to mention, I don't talk about the quality of these products that they're producing. Actually, as you'll see throughout the webinar, we are talking about the quality, and we're doubtful about how qualitative it really is, or how well those things really work. But that's a different topic in a way. For now, we're talking about speed mainly. The next thing I want to show you is this here, and I want you to just look at this setup and notice how it's not a room full of art. It's just one painting and a lot of empty space. And that's curation. It's a topic I'd like to talk about, the human curator. And it's all about removing distractions to intensify the experience of the one thing that matters. So that's curation. And that's something that I believe is a job that humans need to do. And I'm saying it's actually becoming more and more important with the advent of AI, because it's a job we need more than ever in products right now. And it's something that AI cannot do for you, because AI makes it cheap to generate more screens and more features and more options. But a great user experience is not created by adding more. It's created by editing and by focusing on what truly matters. Okay, from here, we'll move on into more practical terms. And I'd like to show you this quote, and many of you are probably familiar with it if you're working on products. It's by Steve Jobs, who is really one of the most famous product people in the world, I believe, or was. And he's saying, people think that focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on. But that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that there are. You have to pick carefully. And I just love this quote. And I remember putting it into presentations 15 years ago already. And over the years, it's always stood the test of time. And I believe it's more important now than it's ever been. And many product teams, of course, know this line, and they will nod in agreement, but then usually just move on and ignore it. Because saying no to ideas must be one of the hardest things in product design. And I believe AI makes it harder, not easier. Because now you don't just have a few ideas on the table. You have infinite ideas, infinite features, infinite, why not add this too? And that's the real challenge, to figure out what to actually pick. That's one of the big topics that we're covering here in this webinar. So we'll move on. Because when it comes to picking carefully, we need to address an issue that I'd like to call the overly confident AI and the not so confident human. This here is Hal, the fictional AI character and the main antagonist in Stanley Kubrick's 2001. Everyone who's seen the movie knows why I'm picking Hal to represent overly confident AI. Everyone else can just think about using ChatGPT and other LLMs and how they always speak with the same confidence, whether they know or guess. So even if AI fabricates complete nonsense, it always sounds like the expert in the room. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this. So humans, especially under pressure, and I guess the pressure on people today is probably bigger than it's ever been. And people are under a lot of stress. And if humans are under a lot of pressure, we are very easy to persuade by confident delivery. Just think about history and how confident leaders could persuade people, both in positive and negative ways. So you can't just trust AI to make important decisions for you. It can definitely help you, but you have to be the one to make the final call. And that can be daunting. And it can be something where you think, how do we do it? And well, actually, I just, and I'm doing this all the time, actually. I copy and paste ideas into ChatGPT so it tells me what it thinks about it, or into Claude or in any other tool, because you want some confirmation. You want to know, is this a good idea and not? And I'm thinking that's a way of approaching the problem. You can use these tools. You should use these tools, but to inform your own decision-making, which is very similar to how you're doing user testing. With user testing, you also not, or user interviews for that matter, you don't just listen to what people tell you and then go ahead and do that. You just listen to what they're telling you, you put it into context, you understand what's behind it, and you use it to make an informed decision based on it. But you're the one who's making those decisions, or Someone needs to be this person making these decisions. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Here's a quick story now that will show you what I mean. We recently spoke with someone from a well-known UX tool, competitor, if you will, and they shared something that surprised me. They told us that roughly 2/3 of the projects customers run on their platform are qualitative user research projects. Interestingly, their tool originally started as a quantitative product, so you'd expect the opposite. So it was very surprising. 2/3 of all the projects are qualitative, but it gets even more specific. They say that about 80% of those qualitative projects are unmoderated user tests. Now, in theory, it makes sense to build one complete research platform with every user research method on planet Earth. But in practice, most teams don't work like that. Most people use one or two methods repeatedly. The ones that are easy to run, easy to repeat, and easy to act on. Also, most teams don't want an expert cockpit. They want something they can actually operate and afford. And I'm telling you this for two reasons. First, more than 10 years ago, we were a UX agency trying to solve our own problem. We needed a way to run real user tests quickly and repeatedly. That's why we started building Userbrain. And second, it's a lesson in focus. If we had asked the market what to build back then, we would have gotten a wish list. Usability testing, interviews, surveys, card sorting, tree testing, analytics, heat maps, a dozen good ideas. And if we'd had AI back then, it would have supported that list because all of those methods are valuable. But we didn't have the resources to do everything. So we were forced to choose, and that constraint was a gift. We said yes to unmoderated user testing, and we said no to everything else. I actually think about it like this. AI gives us more raw material than ever. And our job is distilling it into one clear, user-friendly experience. So that's the key for me. It's about distilling it and distilling it and distilling it even further until you get the clearest thing possible. And you don't win by building the complete tool. I believe you win by picking one job and doing it ridiculously well. So you're actually standing out and you're not just one of the 20 tools that all try to do the exact same thing. And this is even more true today than it ever was before, because with AI accelerating the speed at which software is built, building more isn't a competitive advantage anymore. Because it surely was a competitive advantage in the past. Teams like us, we couldn't afford to build the whole research suite, but people who had the money could actually do it. And if they had the ability to do it, that was a competitive advantage because not everyone could do it. But now everyone can do it. Everyone can afford to build everything, and it won't be long until that actually happens. Again, we're looking at the beginning of all of this. And I showed you this number at the start of the presentation just to base it in some sort of reality. So who knows where this is going? Who knows about the quality of all these things? And it's hard to predict. But I think one thing is very clear. There will be an increase in speed and a lot more things will be built, and resources are not that much of an issue anymore when it comes to building. So there's a different way to look of looking at this now. And it's this reduction thought, this idea of focusing. Plus, the more features you're putting into a product, the harder it will be for people to use. And the harder something is to use, the less people will actually want to use it. The truth is, products don't become user-friendly by adding more. They become user-friendly through focus and by testing them with real people, which is what we're going to do today. In short, AI makes building products cheap. Focus and real user testing make products valuable. Yes, and this will bring us to the practical part of the webinar. And yeah.
Thanks, Stefan. Thank you so much. Yeah, so basically, we know now how to make the right product, like removing features. But yeah, because we don't want to hurt our fingers, like Katarina said, and we don't want to have like a 3-pound Swiss Army knife, which we can't really use. But maybe some of you, they're not that lucky as Stefan and having his own company, and he can just decide to remove features. But you just have to build the product that you have to build, and you don't have the authority to remove features, to make it easier and stuff like that. But still, it is possible to make it user friendly, which is like super important. It's like the small little things that you can focus on, even if you have like a heavy feature product, easier with less features, of course. But still, you always should validate if your product is user friendly or not. And so I prepared another poll for you. It would be pretty cool if you could answer this one as well. We would be like super interested in to know how you currently validate if your product is user friendly. Okay, so I just published it. Would be super cool. I've already seen in the chat that Simon said easy unmoderated testing is what has made user testing accessible to our business. This is so cool to read because we're living that as well. Okay. Thank you so much for answering the poll if you did so. And as Stefan said, now we're going to go over to the next part. As said, we had the part now how to make the right design. And now I think the big question is how to make the design right.
Yeah, that's actually a very good way of thinking about it. This how to get the right design, how to get the design right, and thinking about it as two parts. I always like to think about it also as two sides of the same coin. So you need both. And completely agree with what you said there, Paula, that there will be situations when you find yourself working in a company or in a team where it's just not your call to make. You won't be the person responsible to decide where the product moves strategy-wise and in a big picture view, but you might be the one working on all the details. And I think what we're actually seeing now in the next 10 or 20 minutes or however long it will take is seeing that these tiny little details are actually the things that make the difference. They actually really, really matter, because sometimes, important people are sitting in important meetings, discussing important issues, and it seems like they really the ones, making the big move forward now. But from my own personal experience, usually in these big meetings, all you do is high-level planning and high-level talking, but there's a world of difference between having a good idea of what you want to do and actually doing it. So with that said, I want to issue a warning to everyone now, because there will be people here who are familiar with user testing and who have done it before, and you will know about this, and that's fine. But for everyone else, I want to warn you, if you start running user tests, you will be in shock at how bad some of the things you've designed are actually working. Repeatedly, I find myself sitting there watching a video of someone, running through a prototype that I've built and that I think is really awesome and it makes a lot of sense and it's perfect, and people just cannot use it. They can't work with it. And I think this is just the perfect representation of how this looks like in real life. I'm actually trying to share my screen now. It's just loading a little bit. So bear with me for a second. Here we go. And you may think it's ridiculous. And that's certainly the way I feel sometimes when I watch people interacting with the products that we're building. But that is what happens if you watch someone who is not yourself or who is not inside of your own team, sitting in all these meetings, knowing all the context, knowing all the background information. If you watch those people actually working with the first iterations of what you think is a fantastic feature and a great idea, this is how it looks like. And I wanted to say it's embarrassing, but it's actually not embarrassing. It's just showing you how valuable real user testing really is, because even after 20 years working in the field, my first prototypes are failing like this always, and sometimes not just the first prototypes but the later ones as well. But anyway, so you've been warned. We can move on from here, and I'm going to show you a couple of different methods that we're using here at Userbrain ourselves to actually achieve the second part of what Paula was talking about. This part where you've already settled on a design, maybe because you did what Steve Jobs told us to focus and you did all these things, or maybe because your boss told you that that's the direction we're going. So this part is over. We're now going to the second part, which is actually how do we get this design right? How do we actually do it? And here I'm showing you an example of a test. And it's not just test, but the design and test project I was working on in February this year, where we decided in one of those big meetings that I mentioned earlier, although our meetings are not that big, we're just a couple of people working on it, but still where we make the big decisions and where we decided, well, we want to change our pricing. There's a new thing that we would like to introduce, and we had a concept for how we want to do it, and we actually started working on a prototype. And this is the project inside Userbrain with all the different Userbrain tests I was running for this project. And early on, there's some basic projects, basic tests where I just showed the screenshot to people who are from our target audience. So it's something I'm going to talk about in a minute a little bit more. So which we're still about trying to confirm if this is the right direction. And then later on, it's really about usability more so and testing with random users really and with everyday people to see, do people who are not experts in the field also understand our product? Because for us at Userbrain, that's very important. We want everyone to be able to use Userbrain, not just research experts. And this may be different for your product, or it may be even more extreme where you have a product that everyone needs to be able to use. But yeah, that's just a bit of an overview. Next here, I will show you the test that I was setting up to do this kind of project. And before I show you this, what I need to explain is there's a method called the RITE usability testing. RITE as in R-I-T-E. R-I-T-E is Rapid Iterative Testing Evaluation, I believe. And it was invented, so to speak, by the team of Microsoft that was developing Age of Empires back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And the way it worked was that whenever they created a new feature, they would test this new feature with 5 people. And their goal was that 5 people needed to be able to use this feature without severe problems. And only if they achieved that goal could they sign it off and work on the next feature. So the way it really works is you test it with the first person. And if the first person has an issue, well, obviously, you need to go back to the drawing board. You change the feature, you change stuff, and you rework it and you start the test again. Then maybe the first person succeeds, has no problems. Maybe the second person does so as well, but the third person would fail. Then you go there again, you make some changes, you start the round again until 5 people complete everything successfully. So I like to adopt this method whenever I'm working on, let's say, in-depth projects where I think it's a lot at stakes. It's really high impact stuff, and I want us to get it right. And in this case, I just set up a Userbrain test. Sorry, I showed this first of a prototype of a pricing page, and I can just show you this very quickly. How this looks like. It's just a one-page document created in Figma. You can create it anywhere, obviously. And it's a pricing page with some minimal interaction. So you could do a few things, not too many things, but a little bit. And all the information is there. So that's just something I shared with the testers in the test. And I really like to do this with prototypes because I'm fast at building them. But you can use whatever you want. You can enter a website here or even a URL to download an app. But anyway, the first thing we're always starting is this scenario. And people familiar with user testing will know about this. But it's so important that I keep repeating it really. The first thing you really want to do is get the people who will do this test in the right frame of mind. You can't just show your prototype or product to someone and say, what do you think about it? Do you like it? Is it good? Or whatever kind of question you may ask, but you actually need them to get into the right frame of mind that they can imagine actually using this, and then you work on this basis. In this case, I tell them to imagine to have a small company, and yeah, you can read details here, but basically I'm telling them some scenario that will put them in a position where they need Userbrain, and I want them to explore the page. Then I give them a first task where they need to find out how to test with 5 users, which plan they would choose for this. Then afterwards, they do rate this, say how easy or difficult it was to achieve this task, and so on and so forth. So we're doing more and more tasks. And then here, what's really important is I have one very, very specific task based on something that I wanted to test here, which is I wanted to see, let's put it this way, I wasn't satisfied with people telling me whether they like the pricing or whether they thought it's good or whether they would buy Userbrain or whatever, because that's important, obviously. But I wanted to really understand, are people capable of calculating the price of how much something will actually cost? So I gave them a very specific scenario where I told them, imagine you're regularly testing with 20 people each month and you want to do that over time. It's people from the platform, because you don't have your own users, you want to recruit them. And please look through all the available options. And then in the next step, write down the number of how much you think this will cost. Because this way I can exactly see, do people get the price right or don't they? There's a right and a wrong answer. And for me, this worked perfectly in this case, because obviously when you work on something and it looks good, you will get a lot of positive feedback, and that's awesome. But you need to find something that people can actually do on your product or with your product, or in this case, in the pricing page, that will show that they've actually understood it. That's at least something that I did here, or that worked here for me, because then I could see, did I get 5 people in a row who were able to succeed or not? Then I have some follow-up questions, just some things, that you would find in a typical user test. Okay. And then the next thing I'm going to show you is one of these tests that I showed you earlier in this index where all the iterations were, and that's one of the later ones. And I'm just showing this to you so you can see how it looks like inside of Userbrain. So you have these 4 tabs here, one where you see the insights that AI has created for you. Then you have a list of all the testers who were going through the tests. You can see which device they were on, what date they spent it on, and how long their session lasts. Then you have a tab with all the clips that were created either by AI or yourself or both. And then there's a detailed report where you can get an overview of everything that's in your test. You can see, where the people were from and so on and so forth, and a detailed analysis of each of the questions. And I'm showing you this just to give you an overview here of the AI insights that you can see. You can get some positive feedback. You can see a summary of usability issues, and you can go into these bits and pieces. You can see what exactly happens. You can click on this, and if you do that, you can go to the video. And then you will hear the person speaking, and you can actually analyze this in more detail. Okay. So this is basically how this looks like inside of Userbrain. I hope it's clear also for people who haven't done unmoderated user tests by now. But basically, what you get is these videos. Maybe one thing that I haven't actually shown that I wanted to show you is how you order these testers. I'm going back to the test setup here. What you can do is you just click Get Testers, and then you check the devices you want to test. In this case, I only wanted to have a desktop test. You can set the country, age range, and so on and so forth. And as I said earlier, you can also define your target audience here by adding screeners. And as I did, as I mentioned earlier as well, in the early tests, I wanted to test with people from the target audience. Very important in my mind, because it still helps you steering the direction. Where do you want to go? And then later, as the tests progress, I usually really enjoy testing with just everyday people, not even experts or anything, because I'd like it to be as understandable as possible. And it's something that we've learned from Steve Krug, who you would probably know, who wrote the book Don't Make Me Think, and the other one, Rocket Surgery Made Easy, about usability testing. And he's saying the best well-kept, or the most well-kept secret about usability testing is really the extent to which it doesn't matter who you test with. And that even a wrong test with the wrong user will yield important insights. My personal experience over, I think I ran my first user test in 2006, so it's actually 20 years ago, is it couldn't be truer. Very often it really doesn't matter who you're testing with. But anyway, if it does matter, you can set up a screener here. Anyway, maybe we don't have the time for this. You can check this out yourself. You can go through all the details, because I'm a bit conscious of time now. I talked a little bit longer than I wanted to, because what I actually wanted to show you is here you have all the results. Here's already an AI analysis. Here you saw the videos and everything, but you can also ask Userbrain things that you're interested in. Like in this case, again, I wanted 5 people in a row who could actually tell me the correct price for 20 testers per month, which in my mind is such an easy task. And I got frustrated about watching people, licking the glass kind of thing, as they were continuously failing to actually do so. And so what I can do here is I can ask AI, well, why didn't people find the cheapest option to get 20 testers? This now loaded very quickly because I already asked the question before. Otherwise, you may wait for 10 or 20 seconds or whatever, because AI is going through all the data inside the test. And then it can actually give me the answer. And it can tell me, well, the pricing model for platform-provided testers wasn't surfaced clearly. People couldn't tell whether the $45 per use applied on top of the subscription, whether it was the same across plans, or how it compared to the Pro included testers per month bundles. So I don't know how much sense this makes to you now. It may make more sense in a couple of minutes. But to me, it was incredibly insightful, because I could see, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's the reason why people are actually having issues with this. Maybe I can just show you one very quickly.
The sound is unfortunately not getting shared as well, Stefan. It worked
Sorry.
before. We might have some technical issues with that to share the sound, but there
Yeah.
is sound in real life.
It wouldn't be a webinar if there were no technical issues. Sorry. But anyway, just wanted to show you this quickly. My suggestion, actually, especially if you do this RITE method, where you try to, where you're running quite a lot of user tests, really, as you can see in this, maybe you haven't seen it, and I think I haven't mentioned it, but I did more than 100 user tests within a couple of weeks of different iterations of the prototype. But yeah, what I wanted to say is that the real value in my mind comes from actually watching the whole sessions anyway. So these AI insights will be useful, and the AI makes notes of everything, and it can help you later to, find out things, that you want to know. But actually my suggestion would be watch the videos, watch them as they come in, be informed by this, and really get an understanding of the different thinking patterns that people have when they're looking at something. Because that's the power of user testing. You actually get a glimpse of how people's mind is working, because they do this think aloud method. You don't just look at numbers, you can actually see what's going on. All right, I'm trying to move on now. Here, I'm just showing you this task that I had there with the 20 qualified testers and providing me the right price. The right price was 559. And then you can see the last 6 people here actually got it right. What I did was I got 5 right, and then I thought I'd chance it. I'd try one more time. And you must imagine myself being there 3 weeks working on something that I hoped would be much faster, and people just couldn't succeed with it. And I finally got 5 people who did it. And I thought I get a 6th one. And he also did it, or she, I don't remember. But if you scroll down a little bit further, you can see the 3 people before this, they all got it wrong. And this is something very common with this iterative testing. As you keep changing, as you keep, quote unquote, improving, you will always, let's say, include new problems. There's nothing, there's nothing. It's really impossible to say, well, there's this problem. I've identified this problem. Now I'm fixing it. Now it's fixed. It's like, yes, it's fixed, but run another test now. See if it's really fixed. Because I could get a lot of people to tell me the right price in the previous iterations. But then I made some change. Suddenly people were not able to do it anymore. And then I made a slight, tiny little tweak, and then it worked again. So it's this, you have to keep testing again. That's a very important aspect. And to the point that we were trying to make earlier, that it's these tiny little things that make the biggest impact. I just want to show you very quickly an overview of these pricing prototypes. And I just selected 5 or 6 screenshots to show you how minimal these changes are and how big their impact was. Because we didn't make, once I was in this process, I didn't make any big changes. I didn't change the concept. I didn't make the first part of the equation, the getting the right design thing. I didn't do anything there. It was just about getting the design right. These small little changes. So that's the first screenshot. If you go to the second screen, you can see just a tiny little change. I put a label here. I changed the word here and there. See how this works. And I keep learning as I watch the tests. What is confusing people? What is working for them? I adapt the design. It's just small, tiny little changes. I try something more radical, maybe. Getting rid of a few words. doing this and that, and then keep iterating. Until one point here, for example, I realized people are actually confused about this differentiation between testers from the Userbrain panel and inviting their own testers. And on top of that, they also get confused about, well, their own testers, are these my team members or are these my customers? So there's a lot of tiny little details that confuse people. So I keep iterating, I keep changing, just tiny little things, and ended up with this prototype here, where you can clearly see, well, it's your own testers, it's Userbrain testers, it's your own users, or your own testers actually, because users was the confusing word actually for people here. And just changing these tiny little things, and suddenly we go from people cannot answer the question correctly, they're having usability issues, they fail basically with the prototype, to suddenly everyone can succeed and is supposedly happy with the result of it. It's just these tiny little words. And the thing I always want to point out, and most of you will probably know that anyway, or have thought about this as well, is really, if you think about design and the things that we're doing here, I want to say it's really 95% language anyway. I mean, just think about how you're talking with the LLMs, the Claudes and the ChatGPTs and everything. You can see that most of this interaction is language. But even if you look at a website, even complex tools, it is a lot of language, really. It's a lot of words, and especially in the web. And so these words matter, and getting them right makes a big difference. And it doesn't really matter too much whether you're the big product person who's making the big decisions, or you may be working in marketing and working on your next newsletter. You can just watch real people interacting with this, read it out loud, see how they understand it, how it makes sense to them, change a few tiny little words, and you go from no conversion to suddenly everyone wants to do it. Everyone knows how to use it. And yeah, that's the point I really wanted to make here. I'm looking at the time again and just move on and see what these other tabs are showing me here. Yeah, this one I wanted to show as well, because as you probably worked out from me explaining this RITE method here, is it's a lot of work. You're putting a lot of effort in it. It's extreme, really. I mean, I have to mention one thing, is really this Steve Jobs quote about saying no, because people often say, I don't have time. And I see that, and I agree, and it is a big issue, but I think most of the time, it's not time that's the issue. It's time management that's the issue. It's because you're not saying no to all these other things, because you're saying yes to everything, and then you're always under time pressure, and you never really have the time. For me, it is just, if there's something is really important, I'd like to dedicate a lot of time. But that's me. Those are my circumstances. I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, but that's how I like to work, and that's what this RITE method does really well. Another way that we're using here at Userbrain is this continuous user testing, which is the exact opposite. So what we did here is kind of before Christmas, I just went into Userbrain and created as you will see in a minute, it's very simple, created a very easy user test for our landing page, for our marketing page, where I wanted people to go through the sign-up process and to test the onboarding, basically. We weren't really working on the onboarding. There were no prototypes or anything. I just wanted to test the live website and see how this goes. And then I ordered one tester, which was Jonas here from Germany, a 10-minute video. I just watched it as it came in, and I set up, when I created the test, to repeat this test every week, because I knew that this cadence is really important, that you just keep in the loop. So a week later, we got a video from Ethan. There's an email coming in telling us Ethan has made the recording for your Userbrain onboarding. In the email, you can already see an insight, some usability issue that was discovered or something else. And then you can watch the video or you don't. It doesn't really matter too much. You can just collect the videos. Sometimes I don't watch videos for a couple of weeks. And then I watch 3 or 4 at once when I have a little time, or I might just watch them in the morning while I'm drinking a coffee and while I'm getting ready to work. So this is a way for how you can actually get real people, how you get the insights from real people. And especially as you get detached more and more maybe from building products, when AI is taking over and AI is making decisions, seeing how these products that were built are actually used by real people gives you a real, I want to say, entry point into how can we actually improve this, and to get a grip back on making decisions for how to change things. And even if you are using an AI to build your products, you can use the data you have in here and feed it into your AI tool. That's also a kind of a premise of the whole webinar, really, that an AI cannot really test itself. You cannot let AI create something and then let AI test it, even if it's a different AI who's doing it. It's kind of like, it's too logical. It's the way it's working. It's not really, it doesn't account at all for real human behavior. So you need these real people, and you need to see how they are actually doing it. And then you can feed the feedback into your AI tool, and it will know how to move on from here. Because if you think theoretically about what the problem may be, everything might be a problem. But if you're testing it for real, you can see what a problem is. You can see where people are struggling. You can fix it, you can test again until everything works. And that's just, you don't have to be a genius to do it. You just have to do it. And it's actually quite easy. Yeah, so that's that. And one nice aspect of this maybe is really this, even if you don't really have the time to watch it, and even if it's a project you're not working on right now, like this onboarding thing here, I know that we will be working on it at one point. Then I can just go here into AI Insights. I can look at the positive feedback. I can look at the usability issues. Or also here, I can ask the question, like, that's the one I would like to know. What's the one thing we really need to fix? And then based on all the insights, the AI can summarize this and tell me, well, actually, the pricing free trial promise versus what's actually included is unclear. And I won't go through this in detail now because, yeah, I'm taking quite a while already and we're late. But actually, here are a few clips that I've watched, and then I could see those are actually, most of those problems we've already solved with our new pricing, so that's good. But then there will also be other insights that we can use when we work on the next thing. And that's basically a lazy person's way of user testing, I'd say. So we have the very extreme approach, the RITE testing. You keep going on. You want 5 people in a row who get it right, and you don't stop until you do it. And even if it takes 136 testers, I think, or you do this lazy person's testing where you just keep accumulating insights as you go. You watch the videos while you drink a coffee. You share some highlight clips maybe with your colleagues, and you can, of course, also do anything in between where you just set up a test and run a regular Userbrain test, which is actually something that I'd like to do very quickly now. So because we said in the description that you need a Userbrain account for the webinar. And the reason I wanted you to have a Userbrain account is really so you can see it, you can go in there, you can create a new test. I'm just doing this very quickly now. And if you have something on your mind that you'd like to test, awesome, go for it. If it's a prototype you're working on, do that. If it's a mobile app you want to test, do that. I'm just going here for our website, and I suggest everyone would just do that if you don't know what to test, just to see how it works. Don't worry about your free credits. If you reach out to our support team, you will get another couple of testers. If you're afraid that you would run out of them for this test now, you just go there, enter your own URL, in this case userbrain.com, and use this auto create with AI feature. You can just give a very brief description. We've done a webinar actually on how to prompt Userbrain to get the best results. So you can be a bit more elaborate in this, or you just say it's an easy to use user testing tool, or you use your website description, whatever you want, and then you let it create tasks. And we don't have all the time now to go through it in detail, but you will see it sets up an unmoderated user test for you, starting with a homepage tour. And then this scenario, this homepage tour, you can delete if you want to, or I'm not going into the details now. Everyone who's familiar with user testing will know about this. And for everyone else, all I want to tell you is you don't have to worry about it. This works really well. So if it's your first time you're starting user testing, just go in here, put in your URL, a very short description, even if it's just one word, and do this. The AI will, in the background, it takes a screenshot of your website, so it knows what's there, and it's analyzing the words on the screen, and it puts all of this into account. For example, you want to avoid words that are on the screen in the task, so you're not leading participants and all of this. This is set up to be best practice, so you should get really good results. You go here, you just click on Get Testers, set up any constraints that you may want to have for your testers, continue, and then here, I'm just going to do this now. You order a tester, and then you will see it's already working in the background. People in the participant pool will now get a notification that a new test is available. And with a little bit of luck, we may even see people starting this test while we're finally moving on to the Q&A session. I'm sorry, I was taking longer than I should have.
Stefan, thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's for me, it's super insightful to see like the different prototypes you showed, because it's really just the wording. Because I mean, I work in marketing. I use ChatGPT. It's not a secret that marketing people nowadays like work with AI, and content creation gets so much easier. But also like for the AI, for the LLMs, everything is good. So the AI could never tell me, oh, this is the right wording. It's like the small, tiny little things who are like so important and who can like really make the difference. And yeah, if you test your product also with AI, you will never get these reveals. So yeah, this is super important. Me also sometimes fighting with ChatGPT because it's just pleasing me. Maybe I have to prompt it better and learn how to prompt it right and stuff like that. But yeah. Okay, perfect. So thank you so much, Stefan, for all of this demonstration. And like as for now, there are no questions in the question tab. So this would be now the time for all of you guys. If you have any questions, leave your question there in the question tab. If you just want to say something, just write in the chat tab again. Yeah, we're here to answer all of your questions. Okay, so I see Jasmine is already typing.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it was interesting to follow along. Okay, there's a question now. Let's go.
Okay, yeah, Jasmine is asking, where can I learn best practice case study example for Userbrain? Never run a test.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, if you've never run a test, I think one way to go really is to just do what I showed at the end there. Just go in and let it create a simple test and see how it works. Just watch the videos and see how this goes. In general, there will be a lot of blog articles, a lot of articles in our blog talking about how you're doing it, how you're setting up these tests. There is a lot about information, how you are writing these tasks if you want to do it yourself. But there's also some usability teardowns in the blog, UX teardowns, where we're actually analyzing the videos and we're kind of pointing out what we found in this video, what's interesting, what's insightful. But yes, so I think the blog would be a good place to go, and then click on user tests there, or whatever the name of the category is. User testing is awesome, Dominic. Thank you. That's the link I was thinking about. And then look at the examples there. I think that's a good way to get started. In general, what I really want to say is, and maybe people disagree with this, but I personally believe it's much easier than you think. It's much easier than one may think. And of course, there's a big difference between learning it. So it is something like that people are saying about a few things. You know, it takes 5 minutes to learn and a lifetime to master. And I think user testing is very much, it's this thing. When we started studying 20 years ago, actually, running a usability test was one of the very first things we did in university. So there was not a lot of information before that. And it was something that our teacher back in the day, who is doing UX research and all the sorts of things, he thought, well, that's something that junior students can just do. They can just do it. They will do many things wrong, but they'll learn much more. And I mean, you learn a lot from making mistakes anyway. So I just really like to encourage everyone just to give it a go. It's not that difficult, especially if you are maybe a designer or a product person. You will know what to do with these sorts of insights. And if you are willing to, how can I say this, put your ego on the line, because it will be crazy to see how people having issues with what you're building. But if you're willing to do that, there's so much room for learning and improvement there that, yeah, just try it. I think it would be awesome. And let us know how you're doing. And if you have any further questions, I think someone from our team could jump on a call with you and assist you in setting up your tests and, yeah, helping you getting even better insights.
Okay, thank you so much, Stefan. And also the question tab is filling up, which is cool to see. Okay, so we have the first question from Simon. Do you anticipate AI become better at identifying potential usability issues?
Well, I can give you my spontaneous answer. And I want to say yes, but at the same time, I don't want to say it because I feel like, should I say that? But my spontaneous thing, I think yes, but it's really, we're talking about identifying potential usability issues. And I think AI is really good at this. And once it gets more and more context and getting more data to analyze, I think it will eventually be better at identifying potential usability issues. The question is, will those issues be the relevant ones once? So, because if I'm working on something, and I'm a big believer of designers should do their own user testing, I think if I'm working on something, AI cannot beat me on finding the information that's most relevant to me. But even then, I'm thinking if the AI is the one who's starting to design all the things, it could be, I think yes, I think it will. I think it will eventually. Yeah, it's more nuanced answer than a yes, and I tried to kind of explain a little bit. Didn't do a really good job at it, but I believe it's going to be yes. Yes.
I like your answer, Stefan. Thank you. Okay, and next question from Laura. What's the biggest challenge you've solved using user testing? What would you want it to solve next?
What's the biggest challenge you have solved using user testing? Okay. The biggest challenge. Well, that's a difficult question. What's the biggest challenge? I mean, I don't know. We've done a lot of user testing for clients back in the day as well. And there's one project coming to my mind, and it's the biggest challenge because it had a huge impact. It was something that affected many people. And the interesting thing about it is it wasn't even digital. It was an analog thing that we were testing back then. It was the invoice for an electricity company. Is that how you say it in English? Electricity provider, and they wanted to redesign the invoice, and we ran a lot of user tests back in the day to figure out a better layout, a better way of communicating your energy consumption and the costs associated with it in this invoice. And that was a huge project. And it was a lot at stakes, a lot of money involved. So I think in that case, it was a big challenge. But yeah, I think that's my answer. Okay, I don't hear audio anymore. Did I?
Okay, I muted myself because I talk too much or whatsoever.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is from Katerina. You mentioned already about the time to test 5 people in a row getting the right question right, but are there any other guidelines?
I mean, in general, because it's a qualitative method, which means you're not looking at the numbers as much as at what's actually happening in the sessions. You're listening to what people are saying and trying to understand why something is the way it is. So small numbers. And if you're talking about guidelines, just recently I was reading up on this again. There's this very famous saying that 5 testers is enough. Where Jacob Nielsen basically wrote that, I think, more than 20 years ago, 25 years ago, maybe even longer ago, about user testing, that once you test with 5 people, the amount of new problems you discover diminishes. So with 5 people, you basically find 80% of all the issues. And he's saying to run as many small rounds as possible. So do 3 to 5 people, but then repeatedly do the tests, which is similar to this RITE method. This RITE is very specific because you want to get 5 people in the row who get it right. That's extreme. But even if you don't need that kind of extreme setup, you want to change something, you make a new iteration, then you test it with 3 to 5 people. Or maybe say you have very different target audiences. You may want to test with 4 people from target audience 1 and 4 people from target audience 2. it's not an exact science in that sense that the number is very exact, but it's smaller numbers, and you want to do more iterations of tests. So you don't need 20 people to test the exact same thing to find usability issues. You may still want to do that if you need some quantitative certainty about it. So that's something you can do, but I think small numbers is an answer.
Okay, perfect, Stefan. Thank you. Let's see. Yeah, Katerina just said, thanks, Stefan. Clear. There's one more question. I'm really hoping I'm pronouncing your name right. Milutin. Is there a potential for bias with your tester pool? I imagine if I'm a tester and do tests very frequently, I will get acclimated to it, learn things on the way, and become just better at testing and finding workarounds. I might not struggle as much as a regular user.
Yes, I think that is a very valid point. You could work with screeners in a way to get people who are maybe not using the platform as much, or try to do something there. But in general, I think this is something that's going to happen. And my personal way of looking at it is, and that's something we've actually heard from a client back in the day who was telling us, well, if you kind of sarcastically, or I don't know if sarcastically is the right word, but if your Userbrain testers are having issues with our site, we really have issues. And when he said that, I was just thinking that's a very valid observation, just like what you're saying there, because a person who is capable to sign up by themselves for a service like Userbrain, to go through the whole quality assurance process, to record a video of themselves, to think out loud while they're doing it, to install the software, to do all of this, to use the notification system and to actually do the tests, will not be a person who is rarely using the internet. So it will be a more proficient user. And you have this thing that in reality, you may want to cater to people who are not that proficient. And if that's the case, for example, you may want to do testing with people with disabilities, or you may want to test with children, or with people who are not falling into this category of people who can do this by themselves and setting up everything properly. And then I think if it's really extreme, what you need, something very specific, you may want to do some moderated testing, and you may want to actually visit people in their homes and do the tests with them in person, or invite them into your office, do the tests there, do tests in coffee shops, whatever it is. But if you do this kind of unmoderated testing, you will always have people who struggle a little bit less than regular users, I'd say. And again, for me, it's almost like a positive, maybe because I want to put a positive spin on everything, I don't know, but I'm looking at this the same way our client did back in the day. If you discover issues that Userbrain testers have, there's a good chance that other people have issues as well. Some might even struggle more. So yeah, very fair point, and I think it's the case, yes.
Okay. There are no more questions in the question tab. But I see Katerina is still typing, so we are waiting what Katerina is going to say. Yeah. Okay. Katerina is saying agreed. We'll visit my Granada and Granny. Okay.
Yeah, you should. Yes, that's always a good idea. I agree.
Okay. If there are no more questions, I wanna thank you all for taking part in this webinar now today and until now. Let's say it like this. I hope that you all already created your free account upfront, try to run a user test. In case you didn't do so yet, I will send the link again, and you can just start testing your product with 2 free testers. You can always reach out to us, support@userbrain.com. And yeah, if there are no more questions, then I would say this webinar is over today. Thank you very much. Stefan, anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, that it's always such a challenge to provide or to start these webinars, to plan them, to create the slides, because I never really know what people are really interested in and where they're coming from. I'd like to find a format where it's more, back and forth and more of a talking thing, and not so much me just giving a presentation. But that's what we've worked out so far. I hope it is. I hope it was interesting enough for you to kind of say, well, actually, it was worth spending an hour joining the Userbrain webinar. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, if there's any way for you to give some feedback, whether it be positive or negative or anything, I'd be very interested, and yeah, also curious to see how we can improve these things in the future. Yeah, and just use these occasions to learn more and yeah, be connected and yeah, just exchange ideas.
Okay, so Stefan and me, we definitely enjoyed it. Just saying that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, then thank you so much and have a wonderful day, evening, morning, whatever time it is where you are now. And yeah, hopefully see you soon at our next webinar, which will be soon, I guess. We keep you updated. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.